Good morning, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving season. Happy to see everybody here this morning. We're letting a few more people in from the waiting room, so welcome for those who are just joining. We're going to talk about two topics today. And if I haven't met you yet, my name is Allison Lanier, and my role is Deputy Superintendent of Ed Services. So I oversee all of the teaching and learning and work closely with all of your wonderful school principals and teachers at our school sites. We're going to be talking about District Priority 1, Future Ready Learning. I'll share some information about that. And then I'm happy to say that we are going to have our bond program administrator, Todd Shimada, join us, and we'll share some exciting updates about what's happening with Measure Z and the facility improvements that are happening across our campuses. So you'll get a chance to hear directly from Todd after we get through the first item. So it would be wonderful if people could introduce themselves in the chat and just, tell us your name and your role in your school. That would be great. Thank you, everybody, for making time to be here this morning. And I know some of you are on phones, so it might not be possible to say hello in the chat, and that's okay. You might be driving or doing multitasking. Okay, welcome. So I wanted to give you some information about District Priority 1. We've talked about this before, but wanted to just refresh everybody's thinking on all of this. So our first slide here, these are our district priorities for the year, and we use these priorities to guide everything that we are doing. You'll see these come up at site meetings and also at our board meetings. We have these 4 priorities. The first one is Future Ready Learning, and we're going to take a dive into that here momentarily. Future Ready Learning is everything about academics that the state says that the kids need to learn, as well as some additional focus areas that are unique to our district. District Priority 2, we always talk about this at our PAC and DELAC meetings, community-wide engagement. You are such an important part of that as our PAC and DELAC parents. We know that we could not do the work we do without partnering with our parents in support of the kids. Priority 3, fiscal responsibility. This is related to our district budget, as well as the management of our facilities, which we'll talk about here in our second item. And then priority 4, a sense of belonging. We've been working on this for a few years now, really helping to ensure that each student feels a sense of belonging and connected to their school, as well as our parents and staff, because we know that that feeling of connection really sets the foundation for all of the success to come. So going on to the next slide, and welcome everybody. Wonderful to see your hellos in the chat. So a few years ago, we started a conversation as we were working on our district strategic plan about the skills that our kids need to thrive in the future. We know that the state sets something called the standards for each grade level, and those are the skills that students need to learn in each of their subject areas. So we have standards for math or standards for reading, and those are critical. But we know now that those alone are not enough for our kids to be able to thrive in this changing world. So we went through a process of taking a look at what would it truly mean to ensure that students are ready for this changing world, ready for the future, both academically and with those durable, transferable skills that really transcend core subjects and even the school environment itself. And we came up with these core competencies that are essential for us to cultivate in our students as they go through the grade levels here in CUSD. So you can see the set of competencies here: critical thinker, effective communicator, global contributor, making a positive impact in the community or world, inclusive collaborator, working with others, inspired creator, somebody who can be creative and innovative and a designer, and then resilient learner and wellness. Those really came to the forefront as we moved through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we talked about what kids need in being able to really navigate challenges and prioritize taking care of themselves as well. So we, over the last few years, have been doing lots and lots of touch points with staff and community talking about District Priority 1, how we came to this conversation, and what we're working on as a district around Priority 1. And this is something that if you have heard your school principal talk about this, you may have seen a similar slide. This is something that we've come back to over and over again. Our district, we pay close attention to not just the regular education news and the updates from the California Department of Education, but also what is happening in our world, in the global environment. So there's something called the World Economic Forum. This group is global business leaders all over the world coming together annually for this report that's called The Future of Jobs. And so we've been monitoring this, and you can see here on the left side, we have the analysis from the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report from 2023, and then 2025, and then projecting ahead to 2030. And you can see here that a lot of the core competencies that we've talked about in our CUSD, Portrait of a Learner, these things are also reflected here in the information from the World Economic Forum. So being curious, being resilient, being a creative thinker, being able to analyze, all of these things are showing up here in the report from the World Economic Forum. And so we use this as a touchstone. Our district is part of a network of other districts and state agencies from across our country that is focused on future-ready learning and keeping an eye on what is happening in our rapidly changing world. So with this work, we gathered input from staff and parents and outside sources such as the World Economic Forum, and we came up with our Portrait of a Learner competencies and then developed those into what we call the one-pagers. And the one-pagers are diving a little deeper, and they're telling us, what are the learner characteristics? What are the things that we hope our students will learn to do before they leave us to go off to high school? So we're in the beginning years of this work, and we're focused this year on 2 of these competencies: effective communicator and inclusive collaborator. And so we can pause here for a moment. We developed these one-pagers, working with staff, getting feedback, looking at what some other districts are doing across the country as well, and keeping in mind those components that we see in the World Economic Forum reports. So under Inclusive Collaborator, students are learning how to work with all kinds of people, to listen to diverse perspectives, to include others, and really work as a team to achieve outcomes. Under Effective Communicator, kids are learning to think about how are they engaging in that productive discourse? How are they explaining their ideas and learning to be an active listener to others? We chose these 2 to start with because these are the areas that are really the beginning of student agency. We want our kids to feel that they have a voice in this world, that they can bring forth their ideas, and also that they have the tools to really consider the ideas of others. And so classrooms across our district are working on this. Our 2 learning days, the kids didn't have school, but teachers had professional development, a day in September and a day in October, and we've been working on this. Our teachers have chosen different pathways. They had opportunities to work together with teachers who chose that same pathway. So for example, some teachers are working on what does this look like in math, or what does this look like in project-based learning. We also have something called Pathway 4, where teachers are wanting to go a little faster and really dig into the neuroscience of learning and the implications of the competencies through that lens. So we've had a lot of positive feedback from our staff, and we've been getting invitations to come out to classrooms and see what the kids are doing. And I hope that you're hearing about this too at your school sites as your principals are doing principals coffees, or your teachers maybe are talking about how they're incorporating these characteristics. The big idea here is that academic excellence in those core areas also will be very important always. That is not going to change. We're always about that core academic excellence. And we know that that alone is not going to be enough for the kids to thrive in this changing world. They also need these durable, transferable skills that we see being important in the learning environment, but also in the future of work. So we're very excited to keep going on this work. We're seeing all kinds of projects and wonderful examples of teachers integrating the competencies and kids talking about the competencies in their classrooms. If you have heard about these competencies, either from your principal or another parent or your teacher or your students, could you put something in the chat? I'd love to know if it's percolating out to parents yet, this new work. And does anyone have a question about this topic before we go on to the update on Measure Z? You can put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Eric, I think it looks like
thanks. I was trying to find the hand raised.
Yeah, no problem.
I trying to figure out how to word this exactly. So, like last meeting and this meeting, we've talked about these portrait of learners, and I like this definition that the district has kind of provided through to help me, as I'm paying attention to the school's initiatives or different students' classwork and things. I can see how it ties back to these higher level objectives, right? And I like to see that curriculum and decisions made at the teacher level is leading back up to these things. But in terms of our group here, what is our not our role? I mean, I know I'm a representative back to the school, but are you asking us to find examples of or to kind of help make sure that the schools are incorporating these aspects into their programs?
Good question.
I'm just trying to figure out like tangibly what can I do to
Yeah.
Here.
Great question. So no concrete ask, but in general, the role of this group is to support your principal in carrying out the school level initiatives that are tied to the district priorities. So as you're talking with your principal, you have different roles here on this group. Some of you are, PTA presidents, could be site council chairs, whatever the avenue is. Start that conversation with your principal if you haven't already. How are we focusing on these things? What can we do to bring in the parent groups at the school site? Your principal will have ideas about that because that is one of the things they've been working on. But really, we're just trying to get the word out, and then we rely upon the principals working in partnership with you to determine what is that going to look like at the school site level. All schools are in the process of working on their annual school improvement plan. So if you haven't heard about that yet, it's coming soon. It's called the SIPSA, and you'll be working with your principal in your parent leader role to have input into that. So my job here is to make you aware of things so that you can be prepared for those site conversations with your principal. Yes. And I appreciate that. I'll make a point of clarifying the role for future items too, because that might be confusing sometimes. So appreciate
it.
Yeah, thank you.
So if I'm just putting my own words, then one way of thinking about it then really is, so you'll kind of educate us on these objectives or higher level metrics or things that they're not really metrics, but and then we're kind of working with our principals in a way. It's like another accountability system to kind of say, hey, are we actually driving some of these things into our work at the school? Okay.
Yes, and later this year, this group has a education code requirement to provide input into the district's 3-year improvement plan. So some of this information also I'm giving you as background. So then when we get to that, you'll see how it fits into the district priorities. At our next meetings, we can also talk about some of the metrics. We're going to be reporting to the board on the state testing metric, and we also now have something called the California dashboard is now public. So we'll get into metrics at upcoming meetings as well, but part of it's just background information for you to understand what we're working on, and then to be that liaison to your site. So thank you. Any further questions before we go on to the next item? Okay, I'll give a quick intro on this, and then I'm going to pass it to our bond program administrator, Todd Shimada, so we can pull up the first set of slides. So this topic, there's nothing that you need to do other than to be aware of it. And if parents ask questions about your site, you'll have this information. We wanted to share this as some celebratory news and as gratitude to our community. We are so thankful that our community passed Measure Z in November 2024. This is a $347 million general obligation bond to help us improve our facilities. And initially, there was a facilities master plan process that gathered input from all different groups, staff, and parents, community members, and these 6 areas were identified as priority areas for the scope of work. And now we're in the process of starting to do some of the concrete work. So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to the community for approving this bond, and also to provide an update on how the funds are being used. There were some initial plans made, and then Todd is going to share the board approved projects. So Todd, I'll pass to you now.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning, everyone. Super excited, happy to be able to share information about our Measure Z bond program. Kind of just getting it off of the ground this past summer, and we're kind of still in the planning stages, but moving along quickly and swiftly. So I'll be able to share phase 1 projects. They started this past summer, and they're continuing on to this school year. Projects, let's see, TK play areas and TK facility restrooms. So with the addition of TK programs, one of the areas, the play areas, was a need. We saw that all of our playgrounds are rated for students 5 to 12. And we knew that with our new TK students coming in 4 years old, that we needed to, make sure that our playgrounds were appropriate for them. So we started the work this past summer. We're continuing on this fall, and then we'll be finishing those projects this coming summer, 2026. Other projects like roofing, although the program was just kind of its infancy, we passed it last November. We really didn't want to waste a summer, so we were trying to line up projects to be able to handle this past summer, just to be able to get a jump on things. So roofing projects, we did 4 schools. We started middle school gym design. So these middle school gym designs are happening for Kennedy, Hyde, and Miller. Lawson and Cupertino already have newer gyms. So we have targeted Kennedy, Hyde, and Miller. Other projects this summer, central kitchen design. We have an old, small central kitchen over at the Stockelmeyer facility, or Stockelmeyer school. And they outgrew it years ago. And their central kitchen has been doing amazing work with menu items and service out to the school sites. Had an opportunity to visit some other districts around the area, their central kitchens, and they were like 4 to 5 times the size of ours, and they were servicing, half the population that our central kitchen does. So hats off to our staff at our central kitchen, but it's time for us to get them an appropriately sized central kitchen. Another project that we're doing, Centegix safety badges. So these badges are going to be used by school and district staff. It's a safety alert system where a staff member can press a button on their badge, creating an alert for any situation that might be happening at a school site or a district facility. And the last item we're working on this summer is our fencing project. So we're finishing perimeter fencing, security fencing at 5 sites, and that'll kind of conclude our perimeter fencing for the entire district. And then phase 2 projects. So the items listed there. So these items here are board approved on October 9th, and this will kind of carry us through the next 2 years. Now, it's not the complete projects. We still have work to begin to continue to identify and schedule remaining work. So I believe, Allison, was there an attachment that everyone received?
Yes, Miko can pull that up, the site-specific list.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this list kind of breaks down which schools have been assigned to which projects for the next 2 years. Now, this doesn't mean that other schools won't be added to this, because will definitely add additional schools to the scopes that are listed here. These are just the schools that we've scheduled for the first or the next 2 years. Also, I can guide you to and let you know that our Measure Z bond site that's linked to our district site will also have the board approved project list on one of the tabs. So that'll be a resource that you can use yourself or guide your parent groups at your school sites to reference. So a lot of good information there in regards to the Measure Z program, as well as there's a link to the currently approved site. So the combination of all of these projects, again, if you go back or remember the first slide, which had the 6 priorities, all of these projects are linked back to those priorities, 1 through 6. So phase 1 and phase 2 amounts to approximately $98,000 of the $347 million.
98,000, Todd? I think that's
Correct. Yeah, approximately 98,000 of the $347 million bond projects. So future projects are still that we're planning and working with the board to approve, amounts to about $248 million.
Yeah, and I do see there's a question in the chat. So just to clarify, the bond funds can only be used for items that are approved in the ballot language, that are designated in the ballot language. So it can't be used for, general operating expenses, for example. We are experiencing, difficult times with our broader district budget, but we wouldn't be able to take this fund and use it for staff, for example. That isn't allowed. Separate funding, just for facility improvements and things
Correct.
that were called out in the bond language.
Right. So just to clarify my question, that's not what I was trying to direct. I understand Bond Z is primarily for capital improvements and maintenance and those types of things, which definitely needed. So I'm not trying to. But I suspect that had this bond not passed, there are certain critical maintenance items that would have had to get taken care of no matter what, right? And we would have, as a district, had to figure out how to do that. And so some of those items I'm sure that are more urgent had already been slated or budgeted. And I was just wondering then, were we able to use the bond money to do those things so that now that money got freed up either for other capital projects or for, other uses? Does that make sense? Like kind of the shifting of the money around. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at leveraging the bond funds for example, roof replacement. Majority of our schools, we did a full assessment of our district. Our maintenance staff, hats off to them. During the raising season, they've been running around doing patchwork, here and there, having to bring out some contractors to do a little bit more repairs. But now for us to be able to go through and do a full replacement, now we're not going to be having to spend, the money to do the minor repairs or the things that our maintenance staff has been chasing year after year. So we're definitely looking at ways that we can leverage the bond funds to be able to address items, so that we don't have to spend as much money on, the repairs that we have been doing in the past.
The unplanned things that just pop up, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Okay. And then those budget line items for those kind of like unanticipated repairs, things, is that money just stays there then, and it will be. I'm sure things will always pop up, but is that the
Yeah,
hope
with
then?
the Yeah, with the bond program, we do have contingency plans, so money set aside for as we go through it. We're looking, this could be a 6 to 8 year life on this bond, but things will pop up, that we didn't have this year, but may
Sure.
pop up, year 5 or 6 or 7. So we do have contingency set aside for things that may pop up. Fingers crossed they don't, but I think we all know that they do happen. So we do have contingency there for that.
Okay. No, I expect priorities to change, just like unfortunately they're trying to figure out these budget cuts, right? And they may scale back or the TK program in any number of ways. And I was just wondering since that decision is expected to be made over the next few weeks, are there any like key decision dates? Like for instance, I would hate to say that we are greenlighting the building of a brand new TK playground at a particular school, and then 2 weeks from now, the board decides to axe the program over there, right? So, have we looked at those kind of decision points to make sure it lines up with the board decisions
Yeah,
that need to
well,
get made?
one of the things with the TK, so TK/K playground, so we're actually retrofitting, replacing the TK and Kinder, the actually current Kinder playground to be able to support our TK kids. So in essence, we're also improving the Kinder playground. So even if TK was to be reduced or eliminated or something would happen, our Kinders would still have the benefit of a retrofitted or improved playground structure.
Okay, so it's multi-purpose there in that sense, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Short answer, yes. Work closely with all departments to make sure we're staying
Okay.
aligned in those moments. Mhm. And yes, it's true that there is an alleviation of district funds when there is a bond in place because, as you mentioned, some expenses would have happened if we didn't have the bond. So that is also true. I think we started fencing before the bond. Is that right, Todd, for example?
Correct.
So the
Yeah, we
board had
did.
made a commitment to fencing, but now we have the bond, so that does alleviate other funds that would have been used. Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah, but we mainly wanted to provide just a window into this for all of you because the board recently approved many of these projects, and it's a good moment of celebration to see that some of these things are already coming to life. Safety has been a big focus of the district, and it's wonderful to see the fencing getting completed, and we're in the process of training staff on the Centegix badges. Those badges alert office staff responders when there's a local emergency, but also in the potential of a more extreme emergency, they actually immediately alert um, first responders as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any further questions on Measure Z?
So I did see one question in the chat in regards to cameras. So that is something that we are, looking into in regards to kind of another phase or level of security fencing, looking at cameras on campus. So that's being reviewed.
Okay, I don't see any further questions.
I got another. Sorry, I don't mean to be.
That's okay. Go ahead, Eric.
I just. Um, what is the right channels for? So at Montclair, for instance, the fencing went up. It's looking good. Gates are being installed, and it's fantastic. But a number of the gates don't have a way to prop the gate open. So when we're moving in packages or younger kids are trying to access certain gates that are more situated closer to their classrooms, um, what's the right way to get that feedback to then decide, whether that is a feature that could get added or sort of.
Yeah, currently it is in scope.
Okay.
We're trying to work with our contractor and completing that. So completing the gates at Montclair. And then also it's in their scope to do the gate hold opens at all the sites. So we're trying to, the gates were a little bit delayed in regards to the manufacturer. Now that we have them almost all installed, now they have to go back and do the hold opens.
Okay, so that's to be expected then. No,
Yeah,
no action.
absolutely.
Okay, okay, thanks.
One more question in the chat, Todd.
So the question is, will school grounds be open on weekends? Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess that's been part of the process in working with the site administrators, and kind of leaving it up to them because each campus has its own unique circumstances. But the goal has always been to, after hours and on weekends, still allowing the community to, utilize our school campuses, the fields, playgrounds, and stuff like that. It's always been a kind of community centerpiece, within our community to be able to allow that. We still want it. We're still that's our plan.
There typically is one gate left open on the campus.
Typically, yeah. I guess it just depends on the school site. So, in a particular school site, please, reach out to that school site, and they'll let you know.
The idea is when school is in session to have a single point of entry by the main office, so the other gates should be closed, and that's the reason for the fencing. That is one of the top deterrents. So we are trying to ensure that the gates are closed except for the single point of entry when the students are there, but then open for community use on the weekend. Okay. Well, I really appreciate everybody giving time for this meeting this morning, taking a look at our calendar. We have a little break during December, and then we'll get back together in January with our DELAC meeting with our director, Derek Jackson. And then in February, we'll be back together as a joint group for PAC and DELAC. And in February, we start thinking about that district 3-year improvement plan called the LCAP. We'll share some metrics. We'll start laying out what that process will be from February to spring for getting that feedback from you. And we bring the plan to the board every spring. So you'll be helping us to make sure that our plan reflects the needs across the district. Happy holidays, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in the new year.